Have you ever stopped to think about why children seem to absorb a new language so effortlessly? It's not because they have higher IQs or some magical talent that adults lose over time. The real difference lies in the method. Children approach language in a fundamentally different way, and that difference changes everything. Let's try something simple. When you hear the word apple, what happens in your mind? Most likely you don't see the letters A-P-P-L-E. You don't even consciously think of the dictionary definition. Instead, you immediately picture a red or green fruit. You might imagine its shine, its crisp texture, maybe even the sound it makes when you bite into it. The word connects directly to an image and an experience. Now compare that to how many adults learn a foreign language. Suppose you're studying Spanish and you hear the word manzana. What is your first reaction? For most learners, the brain quickly translates manzana equals apple. Instead of forming a direct link between the Spanish word and the image of the fruit, you create an indirect route. Spanish word, English word, image. That extra step may seem small, but it slows down fluency and weakens the connection. Children don't do this. When a child hears a word in a new language, they don't mentally search for a translation. They connect the sound directly to reality. If a child hears perro, they don't think perro means dog. They see the animal. They remember its bark. They recall the feeling of petting it or watching it run. The word is tied to sensory experience, sight, sound, movement, emotion. That direct link is what makes learning natural and fast. This is the key principle. Language is not a list of translations. It is a system of symbols connected to real life. When you translate every word back into your native language, you keep your brain anchored in the old system. You never fully step into the new one. You build a bridge every single time, and that bridge becomes a dependency. Imagine you are learning Italian and you hear the word macchina. If your first instinct is to think car, you've added an unnecessary middle layer. Instead, you should immediately picture a car, see the steering wheel, the tires rolling, the dashboard lights glowing, hear the engine starting. Imagine yourself driving. When the foreign word triggers the image directly, your brain begins to treat it as natural knowledge rather than converted knowledge. This approach transforms the learning process. It shifts you from translation to association. And association is how the brain is wired to remember. Human memory evolved to store experiences, not vocabulary lists. We remember faces better than names. We remember stories better than isolated facts. Why? Because images and emotions create stronger neural connections than abstract definitions. Here's where many learners struggle. They believe progress comes from repetition alone. So they read the same words over and over. They highlight sentences. They listen passively to recordings. And while repetition has value, it's not enough by itself. The brain is efficient. It wants to conserve energy. If you simply reread a word and feel familiar with it, your mind may give you the illusion of understanding. But recognition is not mastery. There's a big difference between recognizing a word on a page and being able to use it naturally in conversation. Recognition is passive. True learning is active. When you rely on translation, you remain in passive mode. When you link words directly to images and experiences, you activate deeper cognitive processes. Think of your brain as a network of pathways. Each time you translate, you reinforce the old pathway, foreign word to native word. But if you consistently visualize and experience the meaning instead, you build a new direct pathway. Over time, that pathway becomes stronger and faster. Eventually, you don't need to think at all. The word simply is what it represents. This is how children achieve fluency without formal study. They immerse themselves in context. They hear words while seeing actions. They connect language to movement, emotion, and repetition in real situations. They aren't memorizing, they're experiencing. You can apply the same strategy at any age. When learning a new word, pause for a moment. Close your eyes if necessary. Create a vivid mental picture. Add motion, add sound, add feeling. The more senses you involve, the stronger the memory becomes. For verbs, imagine yourself performing the action. For adjectives, picture something that clearly represents the quality. Make the image exaggerated if it helps. The brain remembers unusual or emotionally charged scenes more easily. Another important shift is to reduce your dependence on your first language. This doesn't mean you must avoid translation entirely at the beginning. It means you should use translation only as a temporary support, not as the foundation. As quickly as possible, move toward thinking directly in the new language. When you hear a sentence, try to understand it without converting each word. Focus on the overall meaning. Train yourself to tolerate slight uncertainty. Fluency doesn't require understanding every single detail instantly. It requires trusting your brain to fill in patterns through exposure and context. There's also a psychological element. Many adults approach language learning with pressure. They worry about mistakes. They fear sounding foolish. Children, on the other hand, experiment freely. They repeat sounds. They make errors without embarrassment. That freedom accelerates learning because it encourages practice. But the most powerful insight is this: learning speed depends less on effort and more on method. You can spend hours memorizing vocabulary lists and still struggle in conversation. Or you can spend focused time building strong mental associations and see faster progress. The secret is not mechanical repetition, it's intentional direction of attention. When you guide your mind to create images, to connect words to lived reality, you engage deeper neural systems. You move from surface familiarity to genuine understanding. So the next time you study a new language, resist the automatic urge to translate. Instead, ask yourself, what does this word look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Create that connection immediately. Train your brain to bypass your native language and go straight to meaning. If you do this consistently, something remarkable happens. Words stop feeling foreign. They begin to feel natural. Conversations become smoother. You respond faster because your brain no longer takes the detour through translation. Children don't learn quickly because they are smarter. They learn quickly because they link language directly to life. And when you adopt that same approach, binding words to images, experiences, and emotions, you unlock the same powerful mechanism. Language learning then stops being a struggle of memorization and becomes what it was always meant to be, a process of connecting sounds to the world around you. But when you try to explain something, there's no way to hide from the truth. If you don't truly understand it, you'll stumble. And that stumbling is pure gold. That's the moment your mind shows you exactly where the gaps are. Never settle for memorization alone. Aim to understand, and once you understand, explain it. That's the key almost no one applies. And yet, it can multiply the speed of your learning by 27 times. Because the moment you try to explain something out loud, something extraordinary happens in your brain. The connections that were once scattered begin to organize. The simple act of teaching forces your mind to create order out of chaos. It's as if you had pieces of a puzzle scattered across a table and suddenly you're compelled to fit them together so the picture finally makes sense. That's why you should always explain what you just learned. Even if you haven't mastered it yet, teach it to yourself out loud. Repeat it as if you were giving a class. And if there's someone nearby, dare to explain it to them too. Don't worry if it feels strange, because it's in that effort to organize ideas that your mind locks in the knowledge. Don't be afraid of sounding silly. Don't worry if your explanation comes out incomplete, awkward, or full of holes. The very act of turning thought into words makes your brain work on a different level. And in trying to explain it correctly, your brain automatically pushes itself to learn. That's when you leave the passive mode and step into active learning. And active learning is what separates the people who spend years struggling from the ones who learn in a matter of months. Each time you explain, even to yourself in the mirror, you're reinforcing confidence. You're telling your mind, I can master this. And that self-confidence is fuel. It pushes you to keep going, not to quit, to review until everything is crystal clear. So engrave this law deep inside you. Those who explain learn. Those who teach retain. Those who organize what they know achieve mastery. This is the force that turns an ordinary student into someone who can absorb a language 27 times faster. Now understand something crucial. Without this, you'll never be able to learn another language. Concentration. Concentration is everything. Many people study for hours and convince themselves they're making progress, but in reality, they're just wasting time. Studying for hours without focus is wasteful, but 30 minutes of absolute attention, that's pure fire. Here's the key. Use short, focused study sessions with precise breaks. Structure your learning into blocks. For example, if today you want to study for 2 hours, divide it into 4 sessions of 30 minutes each with a 10-minute break between them. But during each of those 30 minutes, cut off every distraction. Silence your phone, close the tabs, and give your full attention to that moment. Think about it. How many times have you tried to study, but your phone buzzed, someone called you, or your mind simply wandered away? That isn't studying. It's self-deception. Distraction is the silent thief that steals years of your life. Every second you allow yourself to be interrupted is a piece of energy stolen from your dream. Focus and you'll multiply the value of every minute tenfold. And here's another secret. It's not about studying more, it's about studying better. Organize your priorities. If you only have 1 hour a day, don't waste it on irrelevant details. Always ask yourself, what's the single most important thing that will push me forward right now? That answer becomes your compass. By concentrating on the essential, you cut out the excess, remove the fat, and go straight to the muscle of learning. Understand this. Concentration is not a gift only a few people are born with. It's a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. At first, maybe you'll manage only 5 minutes of real focus, then 10, 20, 40. Eventually, you'll reach a point where immersing yourself in the new language feels so natural that you forget the world around you. That is the state where learning explodes, where every minute is worth hours. And no matter your age, your brain is always learning. That's why the very first commandment is this. How should you learn? Never by memorizing. Most people fail because they try to stack words in their head as if the mind were just a storage box. But the brain wasn't designed to memorize. It was designed to connect, to visualize, to create meaning. That's why every time you learn a new word, don't translate it. When you learn a new word, picture the image of the object itself. If you learn the word coche in Spanish, don't think of the English translation. See the image of a car. Watch the wheels turning. Feel the engine. Imagine yourself driving down the road. That scene ties the word directly to experience, to the real world, without passing through the barrier of translation. In this way, your mind begins to understand the language the same way a child understands the world naturally, vividly, without intermediaries. Now apply this to everything you learn. If you hear the word manzana in Spanish, don't think of the translation apple. Picture the red fruit shining under the light. Smell its freshness. Feel the crisp texture as you take the first bite. If you learn purr, don't translate it as dog. See the animal running through the park, wagging its tail, barking with joy. That's exactly why children learn a language 27 times faster. They absorb the word together with the image of the object, with the direct experience. Adults, on the other hand, have been conditioned to translate, and that extra step is like carrying a heavy backpack with every word you try to learn. It's slow, exhausting, and ineffective. The secret to speeding up your learning is simple. Go back to learning the way a child does. Connect every word to an image, to a scene, to a sensation. When you learn house, don't think casa in your mind. Imagine a simple scene. A door slowly opens. You smell fresh food drifting from the kitchen. You feel the warmth of being inside a safe, familiar home. That image is vivid, emotional, alive. Now, when you learn the Spanish word casa, don't translate it into house. Don't let your mind run back to English. Instead, recreate that same scene. See the door opening. Smell the meal cooking. Feel the comfort of family inside. Let the word connect directly to the experience. This is the heart of the method. Language should not pass through translation. It should connect straight to reality. Words must become experiences, and experiences must become memory. The more real and sensory your mental image is, the faster your brain stores it. When the scene feels personal and alive, the connection strengthens automatically. Your brain is designed to remember experiences far more easily than abstract definitions. Most people try to learn languages by building long chains of translation. They treat new words like math equations. Foreign word equals native word, but that approach slows everything down. Each time you hear a word, your brain must jump back to your original language, search for meaning, and then form an image. That extra step weakens fluency. It creates hesitation. It prevents you from thinking naturally in the new language. Instead, you must bring the language into your world. When you hear a word, let it trigger a picture immediately. If you hear casa, don't think house. See your own home. Picture the door, the windows, the furniture, the people inside. Add sound, smell, and emotion. Make it real. The closer your mental image is to something you've truly lived, the stronger the memory becomes. This is why children learn languages so quickly. They don't memorize lists. They don't translate. They attach words to lived experiences. A child hears a word while seeing an object, touching it, playing with it. The brain forms a direct link. That's why learning feels natural instead of forced. And here is something powerful. You can apply this method at any age. It doesn't matter if you are 15 or 50. The brain still responds to images and emotions. The key is to abandon the old habit of constant translation and replace it with visualization and explanation. You may have heard bold claims that you can learn a language many times faster using the right strategy. The truth behind that idea is simple. When you eliminate unnecessary mental steps and create strong associations, you accelerate learning dramatically. You stop wasting energy on memorization that fades quickly. Instead, you build connections that last. Now let's talk about time. Many people believe they must study for hours without interruption to make progress. They sit with books open, scrolling on their phones, half-focused, hoping repetition will somehow sink in, but the brain doesn't function well under endless, unfocused effort. A far more effective strategy is to divide your study into focused intervals. Work in 30-minute blocks of complete concentration. During those 30 minutes, remove distractions, turn off notifications, close unrelated tabs, immerse yourself in the language as if nothing else exists. Treat it as sacred time for your brain. Then take a 10-minute break, step away, stretch, walk, breathe. That pause is not wasted time. It is essential. During rest, your brain consolidates what you just learned. It strengthens neural pathways. It organizes information. Without rest, learning becomes shallow. With rest, it becomes durable. So the formula becomes clear. Focused effort followed by intentional recovery, depth over duration, quality over quantity. But there is another crucial rule. Never aim to memorize mechanically. Memorization without meaning fades quickly. Instead, focus on creating strong mental scenes. If you hear the Italian word macchina, do not translate it into car. Picture a real car. See the steering wheel. Feel the vibration of the engine. Imagine driving down a road. Hear the sound of tires on pavement. When the word connects to sensation, it becomes alive. After each study session, do something that feels uncomfortable at first. Explain what you learned out loud. It doesn't matter if you are alone. Speak anyway. Teaching forces your brain to organize information. When you explain a concept, you discover what you truly understand and where your gaps are. This process transforms passive knowledge into active mastery. For example, if you learned 5 new words, describe them aloud without translating. Use them in simple sentences. Create a small story. If you stumble, that's good. It means your brain is working. Each correction strengthens the pathway. Explaining out loud activates different parts of the brain than silent reading. It builds confidence and fluency. It trains you to think in the language rather than convert it. Over time, your speech becomes smoother because you've practiced organizing ideas instead of memorizing definitions. So now you have the complete structure: short, intense study blocks, direct visualization instead of translation, and active explanation to solidify learning. This combination is powerful because it respects how the brain actually works. Remember, focus is a form of power. In a distracted world, the ability to concentrate deeply, even for 30 minutes, gives you an enormous advantage. When you fully immerse yourself, you send a signal to your brain that this information matters. That signal strengthens retention. Also remember that learning is not about perfection. You don't need to understand everything instantly. You need consistent, intelligent effort. Each focus session builds on the previous one. Each vivid image strengthens your mental dictionary. Each explanation clarifies your understanding. And here is something important about commitment. When you decide to apply a method, write down your intention. Choose a word or phrase you will practice today using images instead of translation. Put it in writing. When you commit publicly or even privately on paper, your brain treats it as a promise. That small action increases accountability. Learning a language is not just about vocabulary. It is about training your mind. It is about building discipline, focus, and confidence. When you master your attention, you can master any subject. Language becomes the training ground for a stronger brain. If this approach resonates with you, don't just agree with it mentally, apply it. Choose one word today. Close your eyes and build a scene around it. Study for 30 minutes with full attention. Rest for 10. Then explain what you learned out loud. Repeat tomorrow and the next day. Over time, you will notice something remarkable. You will begin to think directly in the new language. Words will arise without translation. Conversations will feel more natural. Your confidence will grow because your mind is no longer dependent on a crutch. The true secret is not endless hours of effort. It is intelligent, focused practice combined with vivid imagination and active explanation. When you combine these elements, learning stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like discovery. So bring language into your life. Turn words into images. Turn images into experiences. Turn experiences into lasting memory. Protect your focus. Respect your rest. Speak what you learn. And remember this: whoever learns to direct their own mind gains control not only over language, but over their future.